All right, at this time, we'll call our October 5th, 2021 public meeting to order. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag. Jamie, could you please read the Sunshine Statement?
Be advised that proper notice has been given by the Township Council in accordance with the Sunshine Law in the following manner. Notice advertised in the Burlington County Times and Camden Courier Post on January 7th, 2021, and posted on the bulletin board on the same date. Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Jenny?
Here.
Ms. Pareo?
Here.
Mr. Lyon?
Here.
Mr. Burrell?
Here. First up, we have Ordinance 2021-18, an ordinance to amend Chapter 43, section of the Code of the Township of Delran entitled The Award of Contract or Purchase. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Jamie, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Next up, we have Ordinance 2021-19, an ordinance to establish various salaries for various employees of the Township of Delran and regulating the manner of payment of the same. I'll entertain a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Jamie, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Next up, we have Ordinance 2021-20, an ordinance repealing Chapter 217, Noise, the Code of Township of Delran, and replacing it with a new Chapter 27 titled Noise. I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Motion.
Second.
Jamie, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. The ayes have it, the motion carries. All those will be on our next public meeting for second reading. Next up, we have our resolution. This is Resolution 2021-162, authorizing the award of non-fair and open contract to Starlight Event Services. Can you get a motion in a second?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Jamie, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. Ayes have it, the motion carries, the resolution is adopted. Next up, we have Resolution 2021-163, authorizing award of a non-fair and open contract to Video Walltronics, Inc. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Jamie, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. The motion carries and the resolution is adopted. Next up, we have Resolution 2021-164, setting rates for police outside employment. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion. I'll second.
Jamie?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. The ayes have it. The motion carries and the resolution is adopted. Next up, Resolution 2021-165, authorizing the award of a non-fair and open contract to Nicholas Construction.
So moved.
Second.
Jamie?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. The ayes have it and the motion carries. The resolution is adopted. Next up, we have our consent agenda. Is there any objections to the items in the consent agenda, council? All right, seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda. That's Resolution 2021-166 through Resolution 2021-172.
So moved. Second.
Jamie?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. Motion carries and the consent agenda and the resolutions therein pass. Next up, we have our motions. A motion authorizing the payment of bills, including all purchases made under the cooperative purchasing agreement.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Jamie?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. And finally, a motion accepting the report of the tax collector and township clerk.
So moved.
Second.
Jamie?
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Ms. Pareo?
Aye.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye. Motion carries. And now we have our reports. First up is our representatives from the emergency services. We have a couple folks from fire here, so you want to come on up, Commissioner Walt and Commissioner Bauer?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Chief's station taking care of a problem, so I think he's going to be late. The only thing I have is last month we were talking about a pump. Fire department is looking into it. We kind of narrowed it down to 3 or 4, and when we do get everything straightened out, we'll tell you guys and see if maybe there's something we can work out.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Nothing? All right. Next up, we have a report from the clerk, Jamie Eggers.
I have no report, thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. And next up from our administrator, Jeff Hatcher.
A couple of items. First off, we've had a couple resolutions this evening that have the title of non-fair and open, and the biggest difference in regard to those contracts is the non-fair and open actually requires the vendor to certify that they haven't provided any funds to any of the candidates. So it's more of a misnomer. I'll let you judge whether that's non-fair and open. But in those instances, bids are quotes are solicited, and then the vendor has to certify that they have not provided any funds to the campaigns of the elected officials here, and all of them have. Secondly, branch pickup is scheduled from April 1st to October 2nd. We're past October 2nd, so the only branches Public Works will be finishing up those branches that were out by the 2nd. We ask that everybody cease putting branches out as we gear up for our annual leaf collection. Finally, the Chester Avenue construction that we talked about at the last meeting now is not going to take place until October 18th, so there will not be any conflict with those individuals working on the homecoming floats that you saw outside. That's all I have for this evening.
Thank you, Jeff. Next up, we have Mayor Katrenbaum.
Thank you, Council President. So we're just about a little over a week to go, and we're all getting pretty excited about the celebration of the Carly Lloyd Career event. Planning's coming along exceptionally well, and we look forward to seeing everyone out there. Tomorrow, of course, is her last local game. I believe there's still some tickets available if you want to go to the Subaru Park website, see Carly. It should be exciting. There's a big group going, from what I understand, and I'm looking forward to losing my voice screaming for her. But the event is kind of a once-in-a-generation event, so I would ask that people be patient as the planning is pretty in-depth, and stay tuned for information about parking and walking and shuttle service and those things. It'll all be on the township website shortly. I would suggest, if you're physically able to, plan on walking. I know Deb will be walking. No, she won't be. Or plan on getting a shuttle when it's disclosed at their locations, because driving close to Community Park that night will be extremely difficult. Additionally, I know we're still looking for volunteers. If you are able to volunteer that night, it's a great opportunity for students to get community service and be community service hours. All volunteers, am I right, Council President, get a souvenir T-shirt that says they're part of the staff, and it will be the only place you can get them. You can't buy them. They're not available in stores, and you can't buy them on TV. So we would remind you, if you'd like to volunteer, you'll get one of those T-shirts. If you're interested in volunteering, just go to the township website, fill out the form on the Carly Lloyd event page. And not a no, by the way, but after that event, we're starting to gear up for the trunk or treat, which is once again at the community park. It's October 23rd at 2 p.m. If you're planning to attend trunk or treat, you can register now on the township website. And that's all of my report. Thanks, Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. And next up from our Solicitor's Office, Jennifer McPeak. Anything for us this evening?
No, nothing tonight.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Finally, we have reports from members of council. And first up, we have Councilwoman Virginia Parejo.
No report this evening, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Now I'll go in the order that we're seated. Councilman Smith.
Yes, just one quick one for tonight.
you know, the homecoming is this weekend. So we have all the students, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades throughout the town building the floats that will be, you know, ready to display on this weekend. So a lot of them are out and about. I know it's getting darker. Earlier, I saw a few students walking towards the fire station as I was heading over. So just be mindful and be careful as you're driving around town. Be on the lookout for high school students who may be out and about during the evening. End of report.
Thank you very much. And next up, Councilman Lynn Jenny.
I'd just like to thank one of our residents tonight, Bob Gilbert, who is usually a regular, invited me to attend the burial ceremonies for 9 soldiers who passed and whose cremains were lost for up 20 years to 41 years. And they searched, part of Bob and his group searched for these left remains that no one's claimed. And they search in the funeral homes where they're stored. And then they take them and take them to a veteran cemetery. The rough numbers, I think out of 625 some that they've identified over the years they've been doing this, 325 or so were actually reconnected with their families. The families didn't realize that they were lost, that they weren't claimed. And then the other 200 some were administered to by the group that Bob belongs to. And I can't recall exactly the name of the group, but it's a bunch of veterans. There are probably 150 veterans there at the cemetery, the General William Doyle Cemetery over in Wrightstown. It was extremely impressive and a heartwarming ceremony. And the due respect paid to these men was very impressive. So I want to thank Bob and let people know that if they want to attend these, they're open for attendance. And I think you'd really appreciate being there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next up, we have our Vice President of Council, Tom Line.
Thank you, Council President. Just want to let people know that there's some construction going on Grand Boulevard, which is the first phase of the traffic calming. That part of Grand Boulevard that comes out of the single families and then heads up by the park and the townhomes has gotten to be a raceway. So we're putting in some improvements. Hopefully it's going to slow people down, make people more aware, putting in sidewalks, crosswalk, make it a little safer for the children and the residents themselves. And on that same vein, we should be careful in our neighborhoods. I know you get into your own neighborhood, you think you're safe, you don't use turn signals, people drive a little too fast, but let's be careful for our surroundings and our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For my report, I'll just echo the comments of my fellow colleagues, and also, as the Vice President said, I'm glad the traffic calming is getting done. That's been a couple of years in the making, and it's definitely going to be important for those areas that are, a lot of children around the Tempe Chase area and the Grand. And also homecoming, I want to wish best of luck to the seniors. I don't know anyone in the seniors, but hoping for a senior sweep. I remember my time as a senior, so hopefully I'll be there Saturday. We'll see how it shakes out. But otherwise, with that, I'll take a motion to open the floor to public comment.
Motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. We're now open for public comment, so anyone here, if you could just raise your hand, you'll be addressed and you can step on up and address members of council. Commissioner Bauer?
James Bauer, 816 Edgewood Avenue. Short question. On the Chester Avenue construction, is that a complete shutdown of Chester Avenue at night, or is that partially open?
At night, it's a complete shutdown, right? Jeff?
One aspect of it will be.
Yeah, there's the portion of the closest to the highway will be at night. Will be shut down on this side past this building to the train tracks will be during the day and will not be closed.
It won't be closed.
No, that'll be,
But
for this end, it will be at night, yes.
it's going to be a problem
Yep.
for us.
Well, the emergency vehicles, I think, will have access.
Yes, emergency vehicles will have access.
Yep.
How about guys going to the station? Are they going to realize that they're an emergency vehicle coming to the station, not coming from?
Yeah, we'll make sure that they're right now.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And sorry, I called you Walt there for a minute. That's before I walked in the room, we were on the phone talking about a tent permit, so he was on the mind. Thank you.
It's not the worst thing I can call.
Any other comments from public? Mr. Goodwin.
Bob Gilbert, 75 Stewart Avenue, Delran. I want to thank Mr. Jenny for attending the service that we had. As you said, we put 9 more veterans in the ground. Right now, that's going to be our last interment of the year, unless we have enough and the weather stays nice. We have done it as late as the end of October, but right now we don't see anything happening. Just for the numbers, 325 veterans are no longer abandoned. They are buried in General Doyle Cemetery. 361 veterans have been reunited with loved ones that did not know that they had a loved one that was on a shelf in a funeral home. A total of 686 veterans are located and have been taken care of. The organization I belong to is called the Mission of Honor. Mr. Jenny, I wanted to give you one of these. I want you to look at one of these because you're interested in this. We went into one funeral home. Those boxes down there are all the cremains we found in just one funeral home. Now, we can only deal with the veterans. If they're civilians, we can't touch them. But we've gone into hundreds of funeral homes in the state of New Jersey, and this is what we see. They're just stacked up, and people have forgotten about them, and we're not going to do that. The only other thing I have is we got our stand down. If you don't know what a stand down is, it's last year we didn't have it because of COVID. Year before that we had 271 veterans. What it is veterans that are homeless or at risk. This year we only had 96 because it's the first year after COVID. We had 96. It was either 3 or 4 ladies that were homeless or in distress. It went fairly well. I got there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I was there till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We escort the individuals, give them all the respect in the world, and they go to different stations for housing, food, clothing. We do the whole 9. They get an examination by a doctor if they want a COVID shot, if they want a flu shot. We take care of all that. And it's now been called, we called it the stand down. Now it's called the Sergeant First Class Yancey stand down, named after Sergeant Yancey, who passed away a couple years ago. He was a big proponent of this. He was, so they named it this year after him, and hopefully it'll stay under his name for the rest until hopefully we don't have any more homeless vets. Somebody asked me one time before about the cremains. Are you ever going to go out of business? We'll only go out of business when we stop finding cremains of soldiers that have been forgotten. With that, I thank you, and if I can, I'll give this to you.
Thank you very much. As always, thanks for your service. And great. Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Any other comments from the public? Just please come to the front, state your name and address for the record.
Sorry, thank you. Do I have to state my address?
State your name and address for the record, please. Thanks.
I live at 111 Pelham Road. Okay. So I have a question first, and then more questions kind of came to me as I was sitting here. So I don't know how many questions, if there's like a limit or anything, but just let me know.
Okay.
Okay. So I came here primarily because of concern with some of the roadways near my neighborhood. I know a lot of people are talking about roadways tonight. Just let's walk to the event on, next Saturday or whatever. And people, we were talking to Mr. Lang, we were talking about something as well. So we have a lot of, we're not one of the, I'm like on a small side street, but in the surrounding streets that head out to Haynes Mill, I have there's a massive potholes just traversing the whole entrance of Dorado and Haynes Mill primarily. I'm the most impacted by it because it's the closest to my house and I utilize it the most. And I'm just curious, if that's going to be attended to anytime soon, just because it's kind of like for walkers. It is actually right in the middle of the walking path. We have walking students and children to the high school. Also, it's a liability for cars. Just wanting to know what happens if something does happen to your car or a student or a child when they're traversing these areas. I know this is probably something that comes up all the time, maybe in town. I know you guys are definitely attending to many of the streets, and you have a big plan for, getting in place at some point. But if it's a big problem, like who do I go to for that, and talk to about that? Or do I fill it in myself?
Yeah. Yeah, don't do that.
And there's also two at the end of both of my roads too.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so the long and short answer of it is we have a pretty robust road program in town. We have, to keep the politicians out of deciding which roads get done, the Director of Public Works and our engineer's office create a long list of all the roads and they rank them in their condition. And that changes from time to time every year. And then they present it to us in what they rank as the worst road to some of the best roads. And obviously there's roads that aren't, on that list that we can't get to right away just because of funding. But we do about $1 million a year in road repair. So I don't know where that road is. I don't have the list with me right now in the master plan. It may have gotten worse pretty quickly, which tends to happen, so it may slide up. But Jeff is here, so he can make a note and just have Public Works and Jim take a look at that.
I apologize, I heard part of Dorado, but I didn't hear where your address
Yeah, the
was.
street that I'm particularly concerned with, for me personally, because I'm most impacted by it, but I've seen it all along Haynes Mill, many of the roads that reach Haynes Mill. Like, for example, when I drive out of Dorado onto Haynes Mill, just in the front row, it's just massive. You can tell it's been patched many, many times, and it's pretty bad. You have to actually pretty much stop your car to almost cross over to not have a problem. Of course, there's other ways to get there, but at the end of my streets, there's potholes on either end too. I live on Pelham Road, it's between Redstone Ridge, so Pelham and Redstone, and Dorado and Pelham is where I live in between, but I'm primarily most concerned with Dorado and Haynes Mill, because there's walkers, there's cars coming in out of the neighborhood. And I was just wondering if something has happened, who is liable, if something has happened and those things aren't taken care of, Do you know that or not?
The best answer I can give you is we sort that out in the courts. I mean, there's, I can't it is township property, but, we work as diligently as possible to take care of as much of it as we can. I mean, we all know that there's streets that need to get taken care of, and we try to address them as fast as possible. We have Public Works will normally do patching, on those depending on the weather. So that's, I'm sure, what Jeff will take a look at. In the meantime, we just, as you can imagine, we have limited funds, right, to do it all. So, but we'll definitely, I took a note, Jeff took a note, so we'll bring it up to our engineer's office and take a look. If it's, the reason we have the pothole program is to prevent injuries. We obviously don't want potholes around, and that's why it gets patched. So there is to prevent, people from tripping and falling in it, because there is liability. So we don't want that.
I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
for myself, but the neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you go and I was looking today, I'm driving along Haynes Mill, and you can see it's not just my street, it's multiple streets, and I get it, maybe water utilities has a plan to rip up the road in the next few weeks to do some piping, or PSG is laying down some wires. I get that there's all these plans.
Yep.
Just curious, okay.
Yep.
So I guess ask another question.
You can ask another question, yep.
Okay. So my other question is, to keep up the approvals for the two open and unfair
Yep, contracts.
contracts, what are those companies? Or just out of curiosity?
That's for the Carly Lloyd event. They provide sound staging, and the other provides a video system. So that's, as Jeff mentioned, it's a misnomer, but it's under the bid threshold, so we don't have to go out to public bid for it, but we required to get 3 quotes by law. We go get 3 quotes. We pick the most responsible from there. And then since we can award it, they have to disclose that they didn't pay, didn't give anyone here political contributions, and they did not, so.
Okay, and I'm just curious too, because I'm a newer resident.
Yeah.
I literally moved here 5 years ago, and I had a kid, so I haven't really been
Yeah.
out in the world a lot. Is there transparency, when these events arise, as to, do you vote on whether the community has them or not? And do you give transparency onto how, taxpayers' money and budget is used for these events? Is there transparency there?
Yeah, I would say so. There's an REC, which is the Recreation Advisory Committee, that plans all of these events. They meet on, they've changed the date. It's on the website. It's a Thursday.
So
I
there
think
are
it's.
meetings to say, do you want this event or not? People voted on it.
It's not as formal as a vote. The council, it's really under the mayor's umbrella is where all the events come from, and they, the mayor and the REC work together to put on the events. If they deny an event, council wants it would go back to council, but rarely does that happen. In terms of your budget, the budget is online. There's a PowerPoint explaining everything about the budget and line-by-line items on the budget. Also, everything is operable, which is, everything's public record here, so most of it, so it's,
I'm on with the budget now, because I'd rather a pothole than an event, so that's
Yeah,
me personally.
Yes.
But, okay. All right, I think that was the only question at this point.
great. Thank you very much, appreciate it. Any other comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll ask for motion to close the floor.
Motion?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. And finally, we have our motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. We are adjourned.